The waves were unusually calm for a Tuesday morning, and Jack had taken his small fishing boat a little farther than usual, looking for peace more than fish. Widowed 2 years earlier and recently retired from the Navy, his days had become slow, quiet routines. That morning, as he pulled in his second empty line, something strange caught his eye. A shape moving in the water. Too big for a fish, too small for a dolphin. He squinted against the sun, his heart skipping when the creature began swimming directly toward his boat. "What on earth?" Jack whispered to himself, shielding his eyes. At first, he thought it was trash floating by, or maybe a lost buoy, but as it got closer, the golden fur became clear. It was a dog, a golden retriever, its head barely above the water, eyes wide with exhaustion. Seawater streamed from its snout, and its movements were slow but determined. Jack couldn't believe it. A dog, swimming in the open ocean, miles from shore. "Hey there," he called out instinctively. "How did you get all the way out here?" His mind told him to keep his distance. The dog might be aggressive, confused, dangerous, but something in those brown eyes kept him watching. Not aggression, not fear, but something that looked strangely like pleading. The retriever was barely keeping its head up now, paws splashing weakly against the waves. It wasn't normal, and yet the dog kept swimming toward him like Jack was its only hope. Jack grabbed his radio, but static reminded him it hadn't worked in months. No cell signal either, not this far out. Just him, his old fishing boat, and a drowning dog making direct eye contact. When the golden retriever reached the boat, it didn't bark or growl. It simply placed one wet paw on the side and held it there, panting heavily. "You want up, don't you?" Jack said quietly, his voice shaking. This wasn't a dog hunting for food, it was asking for help. Jack moved slowly, unsure what to do. The Coast Guard manual didn't cover dog rescue at sea. The retriever tried to pull itself up, claws scraping the boat's side. Its body was shaking, soaked and heavy, clearly exhausted. Jack knew if he did nothing, the dog would drown, and somehow that thought felt unbearable. "Hang on, buddy," he said, reaching for a rope ladder. "Let's get you out of there." With trembling hands, he lowered the ladder over the side. The dog looked at it, then at him, and tried again, this time pushing with its whole body. The boat rocked, and Jack held his breath as the golden retriever finally climbed onto the deck, collapsing immediately. "Good job," Jack whispered. "That's it." The dog lay still, breathing fast, ribs showing through its wet coat. Jack noticed red stains on one leg but couldn't tell where the injury was. He backed away slowly, grabbing a towel and some water, still half expecting the dog to snap at him, but it didn't move. It just lay there, completely spent. Jack thought of his wife, of the stories she used to write about animals and unlikely friendships. "Mary would have known exactly what to do with you," he said softly. "She would have already named you." The golden retriever looked at him with tired eyes as Jack placed a bowl of water nearby. The dog sniffed it, then began drinking desperately, spilling half across the deck. "Easy there," Jack said. "There's plenty more." He couldn't explain what was happening. He didn't know where this dog came from or how long it had been swimming. All he knew was that this moment, this strange, impossible moment, was real. As Jack reached for the radio again, hoping for a miracle signal, the retriever let out a low, sad whine. It echoed across the empty water, and somehow Jack understood. Someone had abandoned this dog out here to die, and now it had chosen him for help. Jack stared at the golden retriever, unable to believe what was happening. Every logical part of him said to call someone, get help, do something official. But nothing about this was logical. The dog had come to him, and something told him it wasn't dangerous, just hurt and scared. "You've been through something terrible, haven't you?" Jack said, approaching slowly with fresh water. The retriever's eyes opened but showed no aggression, only exhaustion and something that looked strangely like trust. Jack had spent his life reading threats, spotting danger before it arrived. This wasn't that. This was a creature barely holding on. He noticed the wound clearly now, deep, raw, above the front leg, possibly from a boat propeller or some kind of abuse. "Oh God," he whispered. "Someone did this to you, didn't they?" His heart sank. The dog hadn't gotten lost accidentally. Someone had done this. Someone had taken a golden retriever out to sea and abandoned it. Injured, to drown. "What kind of monster would do that?" Jack said, anger rising in his throat. It was beyond cruel, and now, somehow, this dog was his responsibility. Jack found a first aid kit and got out some gauze. With careful hands, he approached, letting the dog smell him first. "This might hurt a bit," he warned gently. He pressed the gauze to the wound, wincing when the dog flinched, but it didn't bite. It simply endured it. Jack had seen this look before in wounded sailors, in grieving widows. It was the look of something that had survived more than it should have. He realized he had a choice. He could head back to shore, call animal control, and hand the dog over to be put in a shelter. Or he could wait, try to help it, trust the instincts that had kept him alive through wars and storms and losing Mary. "You don't need a cage," he said quietly. "You need a chance." The radio crackled briefly. One of those frustrating moments that promised help but delivered nothing. Jack sighed and looked over again. The retriever had curled up tighter, its tail moving slightly. "You and me both, huh?" he muttered. It was the first time he'd spoken to anyone in days. By late afternoon, the wind picked up, and Jack knew he had to decide before the weather turned. The marina was too far now. He changed course toward a quiet cove he knew, an old place where he sometimes anchored overnight. "We'll stay there till tomorrow," he told the dog. "Figure things out." As he turned the wheel, the retriever watched him with those amber eyes, following every movement. Somehow, it seemed to understand he wasn't abandoning it. He was protecting it. As the boat moved toward the coast, Jack thought about what he'd tell people. A dog swimming in the ocean, miles offshore? "They'll think I'm crazy," he said to himself. "But you're real, aren't you? And whatever happened to you was real too." He dropped anchor just before sunset, hidden behind some rocks. The retriever hadn't moved much, though its breathing was steadier. Jack put out a tarp, more water, and some of his sandwich. He kept his distance, not from fear, but respect. The dog hadn't chosen this situation, but it had chosen him, and Jack wasn't about to walk away. That evening, as stars appeared one by one, Jack sat watching the dog's chest rise and fall. "You know," he said into the quiet, "I haven't had company in a long time." For a moment, he didn't feel so alone out there. There was something special about this unexpected companion. Jack wasn't just saving a stray dog. He was standing between cruelty and kindness, between abandonment and rescue. And he had already made his choice. The next morning, Jack woke to the sound of breathing nearby. The golden retriever had moved during the night, lying close to him, head resting against the bench where he'd sat. "Well, good morning to you, too," Jack said softly. He didn't move right away, not wanting to startle the dog. The wound looked better, not healed, but no longer bleeding. The retriever had eaten the food he'd left out. "Let's check that leg, shall we?" Jack said, crouching carefully. He changed the bandage slowly. The dog let him work, watching with calm, steady eyes. "You're not just surviving now," Jack whispered. "You're fighting. Good for you." Later that day, a drone buzzed overhead, probably from a tour boat. Jack covered the dog with a tarp, hoping no one would notice. "Can't hide a golden retriever forever," he said with a sigh. "Even out here." But the thought of the dog being taken away lit a fire in his chest he hadn't felt in years. That night, Jack called an old Navy friend who worked at an animal sanctuary inland. "Tom? It's Jack. I've got something unusual. A dog. Found it swimming miles offshore. It's injured." There was silence then. "Bring it in tomorrow. No questions until you get here." "Thanks, Tom. I owe you." Jack hung up, hands shaking. It was risky, but their only real chance. The next morning, he made a comfortable spot on the boat with towels so the retriever wouldn't slide during the trip. "Time to go, buddy," he said gently. Surprisingly, the dog climbed in on its own, still weak but clearly trying. "That's it. You want to live, don't you?" Jack smiled. He started the engine, and they began moving along the coast. As they traveled, Jack found himself talking more than he had in months. "My wife Mary loved dogs, you know. We never got one, always moving with the Navy. She'd have loved you, though." The retriever listened in its way, ears moving, sometimes looking up when Jack paused. "This feels crazy, talking to you like this," Jack admitted, "but also kind of right." Halfway through the journey, the weather turned. Wind whipped across the deck, and waves battered the boat. Jack fought to keep course as rain pelted down. "We're okay," he called back to the dog. "Just hold on." He kept checking, worried the retriever would panic, but it stayed still, watching him through the storm. That trust kept Jack going. They reached Tom's dock at dusk, soaked and tired. His friend was waiting, eyes widening when he saw the golden retriever climb slowly out, limping but moving. "Jesus, Jack," Tom whispered. "When you said dog, I was picturing a terrier or something." Jack just nodded, too tired to explain. Together, they led the retriever to a quiet enclosure with a shelter, fresh water, and space to move. At the gate, the dog stopped next to Jack. It looked up at him, really looked, and Jack saw something deep in those eyes, not just gratitude, but recognition. "You'll be okay here," Jack told it quietly. The retriever moved forward, paused, then turned back once like a goodbye before walking into its new home. Jack stood watching, his chest tight, not with loss but with something he couldn't name. "You didn't just rescue a dog today," Tom said. "Did you?" Jack shook his head. "Number, I think maybe it rescued me too." Between the waves and that storm, Jack had remembered what it felt like to matter again. He started visiting every Sunday, always bringing treats and sitting under the same tree. Sometimes he'd see the golden fur watching from a distance. The staff named the dog Buddy, though Jack privately thought the name suited him perfectly. His body healed quickly, though it took longer for him to trust others. Still, the retriever grew stronger, more playful, running in the grass, sunning himself on the porch. He became the heart of the sanctuary, cautious but gentle. People came specifically to see the golden retriever from the sea. Jack, once the quiet old man from the docks, began telling the story when asked. Not about danger, but about second chances. "He didn't swim to survive," Jack would say. "He swam to find someone." It made people think, and many understood exactly what he meant. The sanctuary asked Jack to speak at a fundraiser. He almost refused, but then looked at the photo on his mantle. Buddy on the boat that first day, wet and broken, but fighting. "I'll do it," he told them. That night, standing at a small podium, Jack told a room full of strangers how one golden retriever saved a man who had forgotten how to live. "Sometimes," he said, "the things we rescue end up rescuing us." There wasn't a dry eye anywhere. After that night, donations doubled. A new area was built, larger and better, named Buddy's Point, with a sign reading, "For those never meant to be alone." Jack visited the day it opened, sitting quietly, feeling Mary's presence more than he had in years. "She would have loved this," he whispered to Buddy, who lay beside him. Jack started a new routine: morning coffee at the dock, then time at the sanctuary. His boat stayed clean but rarely left shore now. In town, people knew him as the dog man, not the widower or the retired sailor. Kids waved, tourists asked questions, and the local paper ran an article titled, "The Day the Ocean Delivered Hope." Jack kept a copy in his wallet, folded neatly beside Mary's photo. Whenever new animals arrived at the sanctuary, scared, injured, lost, Jack would sit nearby, not pushing, just being there. "Animals are like people," he told a volunteer once. "Sometimes they don't need fixing. They just need someone who won't leave when things get dark." It was something Jack had finally learned to do. One sunset, almost a year later, Buddy approached him for the first time without hesitation. No fence between them, just man and dog in the quiet evening light. The golden retriever sat beside him, their shoulders touching, and made a soft rumbling sound, like a contented sigh. "I missed you too, Buddy," Jack whispered. Later that evening, while brushing Buddy's now thick coat, Jack's fingers caught on something buried deep in the fur around his neck. Carefully parting the golden hair, he found a worn, faded collar that had been invisible when the dog was soaking wet and thin. "What's this?" Jack murmured, turning it to find a small metal tag with a phone number, partially obscured by scratches. His hands trembled as he wrote down the digits. That night, after returning home, he stared at the number for hours before finally dialing. "Hello?" a woman's voice answered, tired but hopeful. "Sorry for the interruption. Before we continue with the story, I kindly ask you to like the video and subscribe to this channel. It is very important for us. Thank you very much." "I'm sorry to bother you," Jack began awkwardly. "This might sound strange, but I found a golden retriever about a year ago, at sea. He had a collar with this number." Silence, then a stifled sob. "Max? You found Max?" The conversation that followed revealed everything. A family vacation on a sailboat, a storm, a beloved family pet washed overboard while everyone slept. Weeks of searching, grief, finally giving up hope. The young daughter still keeping Max's bowl out every night, refusing to believe he was gone. Jack felt his world tilt. "His name is Max," he said, the words feeling strange in his mouth. The next day, he watched as a car pulled up to the sanctuary entrance. A couple with a small girl, maybe 8 years old, clutching a worn, stuffed animal. "You don't have to do this," Tom said quietly beside him. "Yes, I do," Jack answered. The moment the little girl saw Buddy, Max, she screamed in pure joy. The dog's head snapped up, ears alert. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. Then Max broke into a run, tail whipping like a flag in strong wind. Jack felt something break inside him as he watched the reunion, the dog covering the girl with kisses, the parents kneeling in the grass, all of them tangled in a tearful embrace. The father approached Jack later, hand extended. "We can never thank you enough." The storm. We thought he was gone forever. He's a strong swimmer, Jack said, his voice rough. Please, the mother said, come visit any time. Max is family, and that makes you family too. Jack nodded, unable to speak. That evening, after they left, after Max left, Jack sat alone on his usual bench, the space beside him painfully empty. It was the right thing, he told himself. A week passed, then another. Jack still visited the sanctuary, but his steps were heavy. The other animals sensed his sadness, but nothing filled the golden-shaped hole in his days. Then, on a Sunday morning, a car pulled into the sanctuary parking lot. The same family stepped out, with Max dancing excitedly at the end of a leash. We thought, maybe you two could spend the day together, the father said. He keeps looking for you. It became a routine. Every Sunday, Max would spend the day with Jack at the sanctuary. Sometimes the family stayed too, sometimes they left the two alone. The little girl, Lily, made Jack a card with a drawing of Max on a boat with a figure she labeled Hero. As Christmas approached, they invited Jack for dinner. Sitting in their warm home, watching Max sleep with his head on Lily's lap, Jack realized something profound. He hadn't lost his friend. He'd gained a family. You know, Lily's mother said quietly as they stood in the kitchen, Max was a rescue even before all this. We adopted him from a shelter the day before he was scheduled to be put down. Everyone deserves a second chance. Jack nodded, thinking of waves and storms and golden fur against the dark water. Sometimes, he said, finding the words he'd been searching for all along, we save each other. Jack hadn't just saved a dog from the ocean. He'd saved the part of himself that still believed in connection, in trust, in something bigger than loss. The sea had taken so much from him, but that strange Tuesday, it gave something back, something golden, wounded, and real. For the rest of his life, Jack would remember that moment as the day he started living again. Did you like this story? Did Jack do the right thing by helping the dog and returning him to his original family? Let us know in the comments below. If you liked the story, subscribe to this channel and leave a like. When we choose kindness, even at personal cost, we often receive unexpected gifts in return. Thanks so much for listening. See you in the next video. Have a great day.